Now, several authors have quit the literary agency that represents JK Rowling in an act of protest against her views on transgender issues. Yesterday, the authors declared they could no longer work with the Blair Partnership, that's the agency, claiming it had not shown what they saw as an appropriate commitment to transgender rights and equality. The Harry Potter author has repeatedly incensed the transgender community in recent years with her allegedly anti-trans comments. This month, she sparked further debate on the subject after posting a lengthy essay explaining her own experience had helped to shape her opinions on the need to protect girls and women. Let's speak to transgender activist and teacher Debbie Hayton. Afternoon to you, Debbie. I'm confused here. I read that JK Rowling piece, not the work of a moment, as I'm sure. It took me about 3 hours to read the darn thing. She never stopped. But nonetheless, as I read it, Debbie, I didn't take from it that she was unkind or unsympathetic to transgender people.
No, Ian. Good afternoon, by the way. There was nothing transphobic or unkind towards transgender people in that essay of JK Rowling's. It was 3,000. My impression reading through it was, I wish I could write a 3,700-word essay which was this good.
Yeah, and she wrote it like the night before, which I was quite envious about. But anyway, that's another story. You're right. What she did, though, was she did set out to define a difference between a biologically born woman and a transgender woman. Did that in any way irk you?
No, it didn't. As well as being transgender, I'm a science teacher, and what we see here is a clash of almost like two philosophies. There's a philosophy of science, which says that there are two biological sexes, we're male or female, and women are the female sex. That's what science says. And then we've got almost like a quasi-religious philosophy that's come along in recent years that says a woman is anybody who wants to be a woman or thinks they're a woman, which is meaningless, really.
Well, completely. And when I think of the amount of transgender people I've interviewed and the process that they went through, which obviously, you know more than me, Debbie, starts very young. And of course, there is, a bit of a headache that might follow on that journey as well along the way, to put it mildly. It's not easy. So the idea that I, right now, as a heterosexual male, could just announce I'm a woman, which I think is the area that she is arguing with, JK Rowling's arguing with, that would seem extraordinary. That would be, I would suggest, curious, strange, and a huge insult to people like yourself, Debbie.
Well, it does, but you're right in that under this philosophy, any man can declare himself a woman, and for whatever purposes or reasons he wants. There is some view around, I think, that transgender people have some special knowledge which is denied from muggles like you, perhaps, Ian, but it's just not true. We transition in order to deal with psychological distress about our bodies, perhaps, or about our sex, but it doesn't mean we're the opposite sex, and we don't need to believe that nonsense in order to lead good, productive, full lives as transgender people in society.
Yeah, and the bit that I found most disturbing, I think she alluded to it in her piece there, but the example that is often given as to where this has gone horribly wrong is that if a lesbian woman decides, or a lesbian woman decides she would never date a man who had just recently announced that he was a woman, like me, for example, with a penis and all my man bits, that would make the lesbian woman transphobic by saying that she would not date a man with a penis, even though he said he's a woman. Now, this is crazy territory, isn't it?
This is absolutely crazy territory, but this is what's been happening.
And we have a very, you will be aware of this, because I assume you will be one of the TERFs, would you not, Debbie, in this argument? The people that are seen as either trans or radical feminists by that group, because you're not wanted by some of these trans people or some of these people who advance that same argument, that people like yourself, JK Rowling and others, are a national scandal to equality.
Well, quite frankly, if TERF stands for telling everybody real facts, then I'm quite happy to claim that label.
I'd like to think you've just thought that off the top of your head, Deb. That would have been brilliant, wouldn't it?
No, and anyway, it wasn't my original makeup.
I'm glad it was. But that's where we're at, isn't it? That we've seen, and you haven't got to look much online to see some of the rows between different groups of people on this who are absolutely outraged. I should, or you, or both of us, anyone for that matter, should call into question the right of somebody just to say, I'm trans, from today I'm a woman, and therefore I want to go and use the changing rooms in my local gym, the female changing rooms in my local gym. That's not right, surely.
No, it's not, and that's what's been happening, and that's what's caused all the fuss. And what we're seeing today, because this story just runs and runs and runs, and it's come from these 4 authors who are just in an astonishing decision, basically tell the publisher that unless the publisher does what they demand, they'll walk out, and then they walk out. And how did we get here?
Well, I looked at those authors. We tried to get some of them on, and we were unable to. They didn't seem to want to speak, and I don't think their book sales are anywhere near JK Rowling's for that matter. But nonetheless, what I do find interesting is that, bearing in mind, this is such... Almost every trans person I speak to, Debbie, has your view. Okay, that's the first thing. Most people who are sensible, they're not phobic in any way, has your view on this. So it seems such a tiny, fairly extreme element of one community that are advancing this other view, and yet that's the view that seems to be getting kind of media support. You know, you've got Daniel Radcliffe, and I know he represents a charity that deals in this area, but nonetheless, you know, the people that, you know, JK Rowling made these people a success, Emma Watson and others, and now you've got companies that are coming out and saying, look, no, we stand by all trans people, and we refute JK Rowling's comments, even though JK Rowling brilliantly articulated her position, which included being sexually assaulted as well when she was younger, that partly formed her view on how she defines herself as a woman.
Yeah, I think you're right. Most people do go back to science and what science tells us, but there is an element where people want to be kind. And the view's been put around that science is somehow unkind. How science can be transphobic, I don't know, but that's put around. And the other thing is that people are genuinely scared. They've seen what's happened to JK Rowling. They've seen her. They've seen what's been said. They fear for their own reputations and their livelihoods in some cases. As such, JK Rowling is, you know, is secure in herself, but other people are less secure. And to be accused of being a TERF or to be accused of being transphobic is one of the worst things going. So people are scared.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Because I don't think people investigate the argument, do they? They hear the word transphobic, they think racism, homophobia, Islamophobia, all of that. Oh my goodness, we don't want to be associated with that, so we'll agree with this. And in fact, you know, when JK, and she was at pains to point out in the piece that she wrote that she's not transphobic and has no issue at all with trans people. That really wasn't the point she was making. She was talking about her own disposition and why she has the views that she has, and I think she'd mentioned, if not in that article, but previously, the kind of lesbian scenario that I just alluded to, and she brilliantly articulated all of this, but it still wasn't good enough, and now people are even angrier than before she wrote the piece.
Yeah, well, what she's done in that piece, you know, I think it was an excellent piece, but in that she made it clear that she believed there was two sexes. But this isn't a belief, this is science. She said that there were two sexes, that women are one sex and that trans women are from the other sex. Therefore, they're not the same. We can respect each other, we can live alongside each other, we can support each other, but we're not the same. And that is, that's heresy, is that to this doctrine. And for JK Rowling to say that just punctures so much holes in it that she must be silenced at all costs.
Yeah, and we can't just say, oh, she has a different opinion. We have to give her the tag transphobic, which is, you know, it's pretty mean at best, and you know, life-changing and game-changing in the world we live in at worst, I guess.
Well, it does. It just seems to me to be remarkable. It seems the worst thing you can be accused of at the moment is transphobic, and people are accused of transphobia for the most minuscules of transgressions from this, from what they're expected to think and what they're expected to say. Say something which is which goes against this, and you're in trouble. And JK Rowling has been a lightning rod over the last few weeks, but there have been others. But many people just daren't put themselves in that position. So either they mumble the doctrine, or they stay quiet. But in doing so, it allows this to perpetuate. People do need to speak up.
Yeah, but of course, if you don't follow the doctrine, then you're dead in the water to these people, because, as I remember, she wrote the piece. She was getting all this stick and thought, right, I'm going to put this to bed once and for all, so I'll diligently write a very informed piece explaining my position, and instead of it making it better, it made it loads worse, and they doubled up the attack rather than kind of stepping back. Extraordinary. Debbie, thank you for your time. Enlightening stuff. Debbie Hayton, transgender activist and teacher.